break you. Then give it your best shot.
While it's true that Marvel Comics has dominated the silver screen with its cinematic universe, DC in turn has quietly held sway over the animated adaptation space, releasing banger after banger over the years. I think there are few who will argue against the quality of DC's animated features, and now they seem to be pushing the ante as they just announced the trailer for the iconic Batman storyline, Knightfall, which is set to roll out as a trilogy. The Nightfall storyline ran from 1993 to 1994 and had writers like Chuck Dixon, Doug Moench, and Alan Grant craft out one of the most legendary Batman stories, which changed not just how fans viewed Batman's character, but also the DC landscape forever. In an era where violent anti-heroes like the Punisher and Spawn were gaining popularity thanks to their rivals, in my opinion, this was DC's answer to this surging public demand for a much more darker storytelling. In this video, I will be dissecting key moments from the trailer that just got released recently to find out everything you need to know about this iconic story. Needless to say, this video will contain massive spoilers, therefore consider yourself warned. With that said, I need you to buckle up as we dive into one of the darkest stories of the Dark Knight, as I explore every hidden detail you missed in Batman's Nightfall trailer. Let's begin.
I'll rest when everyone that's escaped is captured.
The cracked Bat logo opening. Out of all the imagery to have come out from the trailers and the promo material for this upcoming animated Batman trilogy, I feel that none are as poignant as the cracked Bat logo that they show us. The reason for this is, and I'd like to give a fair warning that we are already stepping into spoilers territory, this cracked Bat logo, as you will find out, holds the entire crux of this trilogy within its symbolism. The single most important event of the entire Nightfall storyline is the part in which Bane breaks Batman's back and puts him out of commission after discovering the Dark Knight's true identity. This was a defining moment in comic books because the entire shtick for Batman was that he was just a man who could even hold his own against god-tier characters like Superman and Darkseid. Yet here he was having his home invaded and body broken by Bane. I feel that it shattered the illusion of untouchability that had always surrounded him with this one act and showed fans what we were always aware of, that Batman too was only human. The act of breaking his back, in my opinion, is also heavily symbolic of the status quo of the city being shattered as well, a status quo that had been tenuously maintained by the presence of Batman. The cracked Bat logo, therefore, is not just a foreshadowing of the Batman's eventual injury at the hands of Bane, but also the schism in Gotham that follows due to his absence. Additionally, I think the fact that the mantle of the Bat is then taken up by Jean-Paul Valley, who is a much more volatile and extreme successor, shows that the core ethos of what it means to be Batman is cracked as well. No matter who wore the mask, the Batman was more than just a hero. He was a symbol. But the fact that they showed the symbol as cracked foreshadows these ominous things that I just explained, not just for Bruce Wayne, but for Gotham City as well. The tragedy of Bruce Wayne. I loved how the trailer immediately sets up the fact that this isn't the Batman under normal circumstances that we are dealing with here. Sure, the Dark Knight is always sullen and intimidating, but I think you'd agree with me that this time around it seems different. Before we even get to the point of Bane breaking his back, I think judging from the trailer, Batman's proverbial back is already close to breaking as he looks clearly like he is running on fumes. The trailer leans heavily into showing Batman as bruised and battered with bloody knuckles, struggling just to pull the cowl over a sweat-drenched, hollow-eyed face. Was it just me, or did you also feel that his movements also looked labored and slow, instead of the usual athletic ninja-like movement we see from the Batman? I felt that they did this on purpose to highlight the fact that Batman's body is slowly betraying him after years of subjecting himself to relentless trauma. He seems genuinely burnt out and broken even before Bane begins to further exhaust him, with the gauntlet of Arkham escapees that he is forced to contend with. The tragedy in all this, in my opinion, is that despite having the Bat family by his side, Bruce still doesn't seem to rely on them as much as he needs to, even as the weight of burdens are crushing him down. It's also tragic that the Batman has already been pushed to his breaking point before Bane actually breaks him. Arkham's explosion and mass breakout. I really need you to understand that when it comes to Bane, yeah, he is juiced up muscle-bound freak, but he is also one of the most cunning and strategic villains that Batman has in his rogue gallery. I mean, the guy was even briefly considered by Ra's al Ghul to become his successor after he failed to coerce the detective to do so. The point I'm trying to make here is that nothing that takes place involving Bane is a mere accident or a coincidence, including the things we see in this trailer. Starting with the explosion at Arkham Asylum, it is not a mindless act of terrorism. Bane understands that Batman cannot ignore Gotham in crisis, and what better way to put the city under one than releasing all of the Dark Knight's iconic foes from Arkham Asylum. You have to understand that this is all strategically done to place Batman under an overwhelming and relentless nightmare, as dealing with just one of these villains at a time is usually a handful, but having to deal with all that insanity one after another at breakneck speed has to be beyond stressful. Bane knows that each fight will take a toll on Batman both physically and mentally, as he is forced to dig deep into his reserves, pushing his body way past its limit. Meanwhile, Bane can simply wait and study his quarry's every move even as Batman exhausts himself, not realizing the trap he had already fallen into. This is all a massive ploy to watch the Dark Knight's reserves hit absolute zero before making his move on Wayne Manor to finally do the unthinkable. I absolutely love how the trailer is already giving us hints on how the Knight will eventually fall in a way that hardcore fans will automatically latch onto. Batman's aggressive new gear, claws, knives, flamethrower. As I watched the trailer for the Knightfall trilogy, I couldn't help but notice a more heavy and aggressive visual style in comparison to the other Batman animated shows that DC has released till date. It felt to me that the style was heavily inspired by Kelly Jones's iconic 90s art style, and fans on Reddit seemed to feel the same way as me somewhat, with many commenting on just how heavily weaponized the Dark Knight's kit and uniform looked. If you look closely at the trailer, you will notice the spiky shoulder pads, claws, knives, and even a flamethrower. I've already spoken about how Bane is trying to break the Batman by releasing the Arkham inmates, and these armaments is proof that clearly it is working. I feel that we can quite clearly see the Batman's de-evolution from a detective to a brutal combatant who's pushing himself right to the razor's edge of his own moral code. In the trailer, Gordon is told that his hero is losing control, and it is quite evident that Batman's psychological restraint is fraying just as fast as his physical endurance, which is making him lean on this much more aggressive gear. Jean-Paul Valley's conflict tease. I believe if you have read the comics, the inclusion of Jean-Paul Valley, aka Azrael, who is being voiced by Pablo Schreiber, is foreshadowing another important event in the Nightfall storyline. For people who are not really familiar with the character of Jean-Paul Valley, allow me to give you a brief introduction about him. Jean-Paul Valley is a troubled individual who had originally been trained to become a deadly assassin by the order of Saint Dumas. He would come into conflict with the Batman over his brutal methods, but would eventually break free from his psychological conditioning and begin his journey to reclaim his own life back from the Order. Despite having seemingly broken free from the Order's brainwashing, Jean-Paul continues to remain a highly volatile person who is still far more ruthless and violent than Bruce Wayne. In the comics, after Bane breaks the Batman's back, it is Jean-Paul Valley who takes on the mantle of the Bat and continues Wayne's legacy, but in his own classic, brutal fashion. It is actually his violent reign as Batman that will eventually force Bruce to rebuild himself and claim his mantle to save not just his own city, but also his own legacy. A new riddle in Gotham. The Riddler, in my opinion, has always occupied a unique place in Batman's rogue gallery. While there are no shortage of enemies who will play mind games with the Dark Knight, none do so at the level of the Riddler, whose plots are genuinely designed just to prove his intellectual superiority over Batman. In the original 1993 Nightfall run, if I recall correctly, the Riddler's schemes served a very specific purpose for Bane, as he is used as the ultimate distraction to force Bruce into an exhausting mental labor right from the start. Out of all the villains that Bane releases to torment the Batman, it is the Riddler's chaos that actually drains him the most, in my opinion. The presence of Edward Nygma and his monologues, as seen around 35 seconds into the trailer, also serve as a narrative tool to enhance the mystery and the chaos that is permeating through Gotham and the Batman's mind for the audience. His presence in the trailer is a clever inclusion, in my opinion, by the filmmakers to show that Bane's eventual victory over the Batman wasn't just a display of raw strength, but a calculated multi-stage war. It seems like they are sparing no effort to get this point across right from the get-go. On a final note, I think it is also worth noting that Edward Nygma looks much more jacked than he usually does in other adaptations, and let me tell you, this isn't mere artistic choice. In the prequel comic to the Nightfall Batman issue number 490, right before Bane blows up Arkham Asylum, he targets the Riddler and forcibly injects him with Venom serum, resulting in him bulking up. I've deliberately left out any major plot points regarding Edward Nygma's contribution to Batman's breakdown, but let me just say, he is central to the story of Nightfall kicking off. Bane's 90s comic accurate look. I don't know, for me, as much as I like Tom Hardy's version of Bane from Christopher Nolan's Dark Knight Rise, I love the classic character design from the 1990s comic books. Grounded is not what I'm looking for when I'm talking about Bane, a character whose entire premise is that he is a juiced-up figure that broke the Bat. The Venom serum is what makes Bane have that hulking and imposing physique. His exaggerated muscle mass is quite intentional as it communicates, in my opinion, the raw physical intimidation that this character exudes. His insanely high IQ is just the cherry on top, making him more than just a hulking brute. Rather than the tactical modern military gear, I love how Bane's face mask is reminiscent of a luchador's mask, which is once again a design choice that has actual meaning behind it, as it harkens back to his legacy and origin story in Santa Prisca. Seeing the Venom serum surge through the tubes directly into his body really pushes home the core elements of how his character gets his strength and lends him a much more comic book villain element, which I personally love. It's always great to see a character being depicted in a comic book accurate fashion, and this one is no exception, I think. Batman, Robin, and Nightwing at the brink. If you notice during the trailer, Batman is being told by his Bat family to open up to them, which in my opinion shows that he is beginning to realize the threat that Gotham is under and is trying to protect his sidekicks. However, seeing the toll that these events are having on Bruce, both Dick Grayson and Tim Drake are on the edge too and are doing their best to help their mentor. Sadly, just like him, they are being pushed to the brink as their efforts are not coordinated as they usually are. Instead, they are scrambling to contain fires on multiple fronts. I think it's quite a well-known fact that despite pulling the lone wolf act, Bruce deeply cares about both Robin and Nightwing, and to see their relationship getting frayed is a marker for yet another way in which the Batman is being pushed by this event. By showing the involvement of the entire Bat family, I think it reinforces that Bane's master plan isn't a simple vendetta. It is a systematic dismantling of Gotham's protectors. It's actually genius if you think about it, because he is steadily shattering Batman's support system by driving all three of them and their relationships to the brink at once. The entire trailer, I felt, sets up Bruce toward a terrifying isolation, which ends with him being cornered alone by Bane at the Wayne Manor.
What you'd play at during the night. Batman.
How the trailer frames Nightfall as a trilogy. The trailer really emphasized that the upcoming animated adaptation of the Nightfall storyline was not going to be a standalone film. Instead, it was going to be divided into a trilogy. I respect how they are directly mirroring the arc of the original 1990s comic book event that expanded the story into 3 distinct releases: Nightfall, NightQuest, and Night's End. In essence, I think it's fair to say that this trailer also functioned as a promotional footage for not just the upcoming Part 1, but as a broader preview for what the entire saga has in store for fans. By showing us characters like Jean-Paul Valley, it is already laying the groundwork for the Batman being eventually replaced by Azrael, setting up Part 2 and 3 of the storyline. I think the people behind this project really made a brilliant choice by deciding to go down this route of creating a trilogy, as it lets the story breathe, not making this entire thing feel rushed. It is a storyline that definitely deserves this, as it is one of the most defining moments in Batman's long history, as I've mentioned earlier. In the end, we are finally getting a Batman story that was long overdue, and I can't wait to check it out. The visuals look stunning, from the Gotham cityscape to the character designs. The people behind the trilogy seem to really be doubling down on being comic accurate in this regard. I'm so excited for newer fans to see just how much of a threat Bane really is, as I feel he is done great injustice in the way he is portrayed as just some side villain in Batman's rogue gallery. Remember, this is the man who broke the bat, which is something no one can claim, not Darkseid nor the Joker. Besides the Nightfall, what is your favorite Batman story? Let me know in the comments below. For now though, it's time for me to say goodbye. I hope to see you soon on the next one. Until then, stay safe and stay marvelous.